Hi, I'm Rob from Ambition to Achieve, and I'm joined today by Dylan from Cwmni CELS, and we're going to do a deep dive into his business journey. Thank you for joining me, Dylan.
Thank you very much for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about your business and the journey you've been on?
Yeah, so I set up CELS in 2019. So CELS stands for Character Education and Life Skills. So it's an educational company. My background is in teaching, youth work, coaching, sports, that sort of side of things. So I graduated with a degree in sports science, then went to work in a secondary school, progressed through then into the youth service, went into teaching, kind of found that things could be used differently. Outdoor learning has become a massive passion, and that's where things have grown from. So the aim of it is to get children to be how they were many years ago in simple terms. So we look at building key life skills, so in terms of confidence, resilience, teamwork, listening, just to name 4 there. And it's all about practical task-based activities. So we might set up an activity where it could be designed to fail. It's up to them then to create some sort of plan of how they're going to do it and come up with that, rather than us as adults giving them the answers.
Okay, yeah, it sounds really interesting. And have you set it up as a social enterprise? So what's the model behind it? Social enterprise and the private company, or
so we've got
trading arm? 2
separate sections. So I originally started as a sole trader. So I spent the first 3 or 4 years as a sole trader. That then converged into a limited company. So the schools-based side is a fully limited company. We've got a year-long program, so we sell to schools buy us in, and we deliver as part of a bolt-on package to their curriculum for the full year. So then in 2024, we set up a community interest company, which is not for profit and with a completely different kind of outlook. So that's about benefiting people within the community of Anglesey, Gwynedd, and into kind of the rest of North Wales. So the main reason for that was we were missing children. It was down to schools to buy us in. If the school didn't buy us in, then their pupils, their children, weren't making any benefit of our service. And the feedback we got was that this wasn't fair. So we totally agreed with that. So we set up the community interest company then, which allowed us to be able to access pots of money to allow us to then deliver these sessions within the community. So that's been running now just over 2 years. We've employed Matt to come on board with us just before Christmas. That was after securing 2 big pots of funding. So now Matt works full-time within the company, which has really, really grown things this last few months.
So the relationship then is predominantly working with primary schools. How do you find the uptake on your sessions? Are they always full, always oversubscribed, or? Yeah,
the uptake's fantastic. We've really built. I'm a real person about relationships. I'm about building relationships with kind of everybody within our world. So that started many years ago with local authorities, with schools, and it's kind of building them relationships and that trust. There's always been a bit of distrust, I'd say, between schools and third-party companies that will go in, sell them the dream, and then kind of pull out and pull away. So we've been really, really positive with that and making sure them relationships are kept. So over the years, we've had numerous schools still buy us in year after year, which is fantastic. And if things aren't working, then we look to build them. It's not a case of just pulling the rug and disappearing like some of these other companies are. And then in terms of the community side, it's exactly the same. So we try and build relationships with parents. If it's a holiday club and parents drop them off, as a parent myself, what I'd like is to have that consistent person there that I know that I can trust with my children. So we really make the effort to greet parents properly, make sure their children are looked after, and the feedback we get for them has been superb. We've had a lot of positive feedback in terms of whenever we've asked. That's allowed us to access other pots of funding. But just throughout the whole journey, parents have just been so supportive of everything, especially if we can offer things at discounted rates, or we've done a lot of things for free recently. So the more we can get coming into us, the more we'd like to provide for free, because times are difficult, especially with parents with children or more than one child, 2, 3 children in the household. It can be really expensive paying £15-20 for a day of holiday camp. So we try and keep that cost low, and parents really appreciate it, I think.
Yeah. Do you think, when we're having these conversations with entrepreneurs, one of the things that we see is the guiding principles from the business is it's almost like solving a problem. So I suppose, you're saying about holiday clubs, it solves a problem for busy parents, doesn't it? If they've got, 2 or 3 kids, it gives them something that they can rely on because they have to continue to work all year round. And would you say that that's been the kind of key element of the business?
Yeah, I'd say so. With that community side, it's 100% part of it. So we've got the holiday clubs we tend to run from sort of 10 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So parents are still working and stuff, and the fact that they can drop them with us, they can trust them, they can send them with their lunchbox and stuff, and 100% safe. But also they're going home and they've had a good day as well. It's not just, we're kind of not a childcare provider, but we're there to develop skills, let them enjoy the day, and also solve that problem for parents. So it's there's a lot of benefits for it,
and the fun aspect as well, because that's what kids want, isn't it? Really, to have a good day, but learn something, but do it through the fun way, isn't it? Because I suppose as we were kids, used to go to things, potentially holiday clubs, and they weren't so decent, they weren't so good.
Yeah, and that's it. And what we've really found in the other problem we've solved, I guess, is not running sports camps. So over the years, I'm a really sporty person, as a couple of the other guys that work with us are. However, there are a lot of children out there that aren't. So they've kind of gone to sports camps over the years, not liked it, and then not wanted to do anything. So parents are then kind of stuck at home with these children over Easter for 2 weeks, over summer for 6 weeks, and they've got nowhere to go. So we've really offered an alternative. So the holiday clubs will include arts and crafts. They include team sort of games, but kind of without competition type based stuff. Anything to kind of pull it away from the stereotype of, I don't like sport, let's do sport. But we're also keeping them physically active whilst they're doing it, which is really important. Yeah,
it's interesting. I mean, I've got 2 boys, 5 and 8 years old, and one, the 8-year-old, he's very much into football. He plays for Cwmni juniors, so he loves it. Football. Any point you can get out in the garden with the ball, he's happy. Whereas the younger one, he's the opposite. He enjoys soft play, sandbox, mud and water, would you believe, and all the dirt, and that's his thing. So I suppose having that balance between the sport and something that isn't sport, but it still keeps them active, is quite an interesting one, isn't it? And also, you're saying there about having the local connection. Do you think it's been of a benefit to the company that you're local, Welsh speaking, people know you?
100%.
In Cwmni and surrounding areas. That's obviously got to be a positive, isn't it?
Yeah, so our biggest selling point, especially with the schools, is the fact that we're a Welsh company. So Anglesey and Gwynedd especially, there's not many other companies that manage to work with schools. They can't build that partnership, whereas you kind of move further up the coast, up towards Conway, Denbighshire, and the English companies we're competing with them. Whereas here, we're local people, we're kind of not going anywhere. That trust's kind of strong straight away with that local thing, but it's the connections you've kind of made. But when I first started out, there weren't many connections, and it's kind of just building them and building relationships. And
it's that stakeholder engagement, isn't it? So if we take a step back then, to before you started the business, what was your situation and what made you take the leap into self-employment?
Yeah, so it was a really interesting one. So 2019 I started. So 2017 I worked for a UK-wide company, really enjoyed my job. And then one Friday afternoon, I remember where I was sat in Standing Stones in Holyhead. Friday afternoon, nice sunny day, and I got a random email out of nowhere, saying that the company had gone into administration. We were not going to be paid anymore unless somebody took over the company. So we had, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks of uncertainty then of what was going to happen with our jobs, where we were going to be, and nobody came forward, nobody bought it, and the company went under. So it kind of got to that point where, I think it was about August time, so what on earth am I going to do now? I kind of haven't got anywhere. So I spoke to a couple of schools, and it just started from there. Would you be interested in something like this? Very informally, I can come and offer this. It's kind of like a teaching kind of role. Would you be interested? So that started with a school in Holyhead and a school up in Queensferry at the time. And then it just built from there. So what tended to happen, you get one school and then everybody kind of hears, oh, that's okay, actually, it's safe, we can work with them. And then you get that catchment area, and then it kind of grows from there. So yeah, that's been really interesting. And then obviously COVID hit 2 years later, which threw another spanner into the works. But yeah, the biggest thing with the redundancy, I've been with the company just under 2 years, so I'd been with them, I think it was something like 20 months, so I wasn't eligible for any redundancy. Yeah, so I wasn't eligible for any redundancy pay or anything, so left with absolutely nothing, nowhere to go. Set the company up, it started growing and stuff, and then COVID hit again, and I'd not been self-employed for 2 years, so I wasn't eligible for any furlough. I wasn't eligible for anything from anybody. So it was just
like one hit after another.
So it was really, everything was kind of stacked against us. So I kind of made the decision then, and I've been totally honest with everybody, the company very, very nearly went under then because schools obviously couldn't have us in. There was zero income coming into the bank. So it was a case of what do we do now? So luckily, one of the schools kept us on in terms of looking after the key workers, the NHS staff looking after their children. So we went in once a week, which kept a little bit of income coming. But I then set up a garden maintenance company because I thought I'm going to have to get some money in somewhere. So I put a post on Facebook saying, this is my situation. I'm kind of out of work at the moment. The company might go under. Does anybody need their grass cutting? And I still, to the day, can't get over the response of it. I think I had something like 170 odd comments on the section.
Saying
I had
yes,
all these private messages. I said, I'm not going to charge the world. I just need to charge a daily rate that I can live off. So that then went from just cutting grass to building fences to putting patios down to real hyper focus on YouTube of I'm going to teach myself how to do these things. So I probably spent 2 years or so doing both kind of roles as soon as we came out of COVID, because schools still weren't accepting us back in because of everything that was going on. I remember teaching in masks and stuff, the crazy period. So I remember one time I was going from a school and then straight then to cut one of the teachers' gardens with my strimmer and everything, so straight from my work clothes into everything else, and the car got battered at the time.
Crazy times, eh?
It was kind of my way of surviving, and I just learned so much about that period and about people and about kindness from strangers, because I charge, I can't remember what we charge per day, but nearly everybody was saying, we'll pay you extra because you worked so hard and you've done such a good job and you've turned up, they pay extra. And it was just a really sort of humbling period. And then following that period, schools allowed us back in, and then with the effects of COVID and stuff, our work kind of boomed then. As soon as the COVID effects had really hit, especially the pupils that had missed that foundation phase and all the interactive play and things, as they progressed through the school, the issues are becoming clear, and they're still clear now. And that's kind of been that silver lining since then is, our work's really grown and I don't have to cut anybody's grass anymore.
Yeah, it's an amazing story though, isn't it? Because obviously that was probably, you say when you were made redundant, and then obviously 2020 was a big eye-opener for a lot of people, a lot of companies. I suppose it was you finding passion from those pain points and getting to a point where you had to do the gardening work. Otherwise there was nothing, so it's interesting, isn't it? And do you still do that now, or have you
nothing. So we've got another company, like a properties sort of renovation company, so we do bits and bobs. We've recently bought a salon, my partner works in a salon and stuff, so any renovations or stuff I'll do myself and save some money that side. But time's the biggest issue now, isn't it, with juggling everything else and juggling the other two companies. So I enjoy it though.
So going back then 2020, obviously, just looking behind you, the 5 guiding principles, would you say the effects of 2020 and 2021 has increased your work now? Because obviously there are kids who haven't had the opportunity to work with others and build healthy relationships with their peers and their teachers,
definitely.
Would you say? Definitely.
And I mentioned earlier, that foundation phase is crucial in terms of playing and interacting and children learning how to work with others and that conflict resolution and sharing and all them vital things. And they just didn't get it because they were sat at home for however long we were in lockdown. And even once we came out of lockdown, the masks and everything kind of changed. So we find it really difficult, especially kind of that age group now, we're kind of upper primary school age, and having them interact with each other, it's not a common given like it used to be. We have a lot of people have conversations, we just want kids to be back to how they were. We've got such a long way to go because the world's changed, but not just COVID. We've got a lot of screen time and everything's now is massive. Communication's different. We don't communicate like this anymore. It's more through a screen. Even
companies do, don't they? You've got school leavers now who let's say they were about to sit their GCSEs during 2020 and they might have gone into roles where it's 100% home working because a lot of businesses have transitioned.
Yeah.
Seeing the benefits, dare I say it's a benefit, of not having an office is a lot cheaper to run when people working at home. But it's true what you say, you lose that human interaction, having conversations like we're having this afternoon. So would you say then your work really from 2020 on has been underpinned by building that engagement back up with young people and the schools and the teachers?
I think it's definitely been a part of it. I think society have kind of identified now that something does need to change, something does need to happen with our children and young people. There's a lot of guidance and a lot of focus now is on children and young people. So our year-long programme covers the whole health and wellbeing area of learning within the new curriculum. So the fact that we cover everything from diet to communication to physical health, well-being, it's kind of all in that package, emotions and all them sorts of things. So it's just so relevant within every sector. And it's definitely been, some schools have bigger issues than other schools, different areas have different problems, and it all kind of depends on where their school's priorities kind of lie that year. Obviously they set out their priorities each year. But for a lot of schools and a lot of communities, I think, health and wellbeing and children and young people have been sort of massive priorities over the last couple of years as well. So I think it's come from COVID and it's tailed off, and people are kind of forgotten about that period now, but it's still definitely having a big effect.
And also, you think there about the use of things like Microsoft Teams and Zoom. Do you see the advancement of AI and those types of technologies a positive or a negative to your business going forwards?
I'm pro AI. I've wanted to stay on the right side of it since it was launched. I kind of didn't want to be the one that was buried head in the sand and it kind of disappeared and stuff. So I've really engaged with AI since the inception, sort of a couple of years ago. And funnily enough, I was speaking about it with somebody a couple of days ago. And I don't think the company would be where it is now in terms of where we are without AI.
The development,
the amount of time it saves with strategic type stuff. So we're very cautious of how we use it in terms of data-wise, no children's data or anything like that goes in it. But in terms of strategy and growing the business and ideas and brainstorming and, bringing frameworks together and breaking them down to actually digest and put into our company, stuff like that's priceless, Work like that, breaking a big document down could take me 3 days, whereas now I can probably get a summary within 5-10 minutes. Yes, it's there.
And what tools do you prefer? I mean, are you happy to name a few? I know ChatGPT is a big one that's come up in these interviews. Yeah,
so we started with ChatGPT probably a couple of years ago. We used it as a team, and to be honest, that's kind of between that and Copilot, we kind of subscribe to them both. But I just think it's important that you do pay the fee for them. I remember somebody saying early on, if you're not subscribing, then you are basically just giving them free use of your data. As soon as you start paying, I believe I'm right in saying you've got a bit more protection then. But obviously, again, you don't want to put anything too sensitive in there. So we use that a little bit now. I've moved on now to using Claude. I don't know if you come across Claude.
We used it a little bit in the work we do,
so
predominantly ChatGPT and Gemini as well we've used.
It kind of depends what you're doing. So there was a really interesting one, I won't name the app, but we've built like vibe coding and stuff they call it now. So we've built our own websites for both. We've built a big CRM unit. So I was quoted £3,500 I think it was just before Christmas to build a CRM unit for us to, but I wasn't quite sure what it wanted to look like. Anyway, I got speaking to somebody in MSPAC and he was really grateful for his help. And he kind of said, it's quite straightforward if you can just learn how to do this. So the basic thing is using 2 AI models with each other to speak to each other. And we've created a CRM unit now, which is by far the best thing we've ever done. Data reporting, monitoring, I don't know how we do it without it now. And that's all come for free, but not even for free. I can change it. So if we get a different grant funding coming through that want different priorities, I can just code it straight into there rather than having to wait for software developers and pay for all them. So that's been the biggest game changer to us. It's been awesome.
I mean, I don't know if you've seen the difference. You're talking there about using unpaid subscriptions and paid subscriptions. I think obviously it handles your data differently, but also, don't know if you've noticed the quality of the output. So the unpaid, the free one, the quality of like data integration or reading of documents isn't quite as good as the paid one.
No.
So, you know, advice to viewers is obviously, if you're going to use things like that, is to, if you can afford it, to use the paid subscription, because it gives you that safety net, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's worth experimenting with as well, because I think they're quite clever in the way your ChatGPT, for example, the more you feed it, the more it knows about you, the clever it kind of gets in theory.
Yeah. And it remembers you as well. Have you noticed it'll remember things you've said 2 years ago on the business journey.
It's an interesting thing to ask.
It's brilliant because it brings it back.
ChatGPT what it knows about you is a really interesting one. But yeah, it's really difficult then to move from that to a brand new model of something else, because it doesn't know anything about you, and it's like having to train it all over again. But there are ways to export in between them. But I'd say experiment. Everybody's different. Everybody likes different things, and everybody's got different roles, haven't they? So I'm finding Claude at the moment now is much more powerful, especially kind of the coding side of things. It's really powerful towards the code, and it identifies things much quicker than ChatGPT would. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, we could probably do a whole video on technology and AI. I'm not going to go off the topic too much, but it's interesting, you know, ask this question in all of the interviews that we do, and everybody does say ChatGPT first, but there's more towards using the Microsoft systems now. So I think they are getting stronger. So if we bring it back to the journey then, what would you say, I mean, what is it now, 5 years, 6 years in? 7 years?
7 years.
7 years?
7 years in August, yeah.
What's been the hardest part of the journey? Have you ever had moments where you thought, actually, do you know what, this is not working, and how did you kind of counterbalance that? I know we've touched upon 2020.
I think it's not working every 6 weeks.
Do you?
And I think I'm just going to go and get a salary job and just go and work somewhere else, and that'd be that. And I think, honestly, the hardest bit is the self-discipline, the self-reliance, the self-expectation. I expect a lot of myself, and I'm very critical of myself. But having spoken to other business owners, I think the hardest thing is just being able to switch off. So I've had kind of open conversations, whereas when I used to work at a salaried role, I'd finish on a Friday at 4 o'clock and I was done then, and it was my weekend.
On Monday,
Whereas I'll wake up Saturday morning, the first thing I'll think of is work. I'll go to bed Saturday night, Sunday morning. It's the first thing and the last thing I think of is work. And then, you know, you get a phone call on Monday morning, somebody's phoned in sick, and it throws others. You're constantly spilling plates, and you're trying your best to prepare for things that have not even happened yet. And I'm a very thorough planner. I kind of like everything planned out. I like everything to go to plan, which doesn't really happen in the real world. So I'd say that's the most difficult thing, but it's also the most rewarding thing. I think putting all that work into it definitely brings its benefits. I'll sit on the sofa in the evening on my computer doing fully work after sitting in the office all day, and people will ask, you know, you're working too much, but it kind of doesn't feel like work when it's for your own benefit. And the more you work in terms of that, you know, everybody's different. But I find if I'm sat there and I can just manage to process a little bit of work, it's not kind of doing any harm. But yeah, it's difficult to switch off.
Yeah, and I suppose also, you know, I was talking to a lady this morning, she was in the retail business, and she was saying the biggest thing for her, that the hardest part, it was similar to what you were saying, managing time and resources and people and assets. But she said that on the flip side to that, she controls her own time, that time freedom.
Yeah.
You know, that money freedom, not being capped by a salary, not being capped by a 9 to 5 and having to report in and out. So I suppose everything has its good and bad, doesn't it? Positives 100%. And negatives, really. Any moments where you really thought it wasn't going to work, and what was the kind of turning point on that? What did you put in place to...
Yeah,
was it a mindset thing, or was it a physical thing in the business?
There's been a couple of sort of areas. Obviously, the COVID period was difficult. But then once we came out of that, it was kind of about scaling. So I'd kind of reached my maximum of what I could physically deliver. So we then brought somebody else in to help me kind of deliver things. Unfortunately, that kind of didn't work out, but that was the first experience of employing somebody, and that kind of sunk a lot within me because I wasn't being represented in the way I wanted to be represented. And I took that really personally, and I still find that difficult now. If I get a phone call of a complaint or anything's not quite as it should be, I take it really personally. Yeah. And that's such kind of a downside that I just can't switch off from that. And it's kind of, I feel like it's an attack on me, where I know full well it's not, it's an attack on the company as such, but I'd still...
But it's an extension of you, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's your baby, isn't it?
That's it.
They say.
That's it, yeah. So, but no, there's been a few sort of instances, but they're probably the main two, I'd say.
So we're starting to draw towards the end of the interview now. So it's the bit where we like to hopefully take some of your knowledge and pass it on to the viewers. What would you say to somebody, I'm not going to say a young person because, you know, ambition is open to everyone, isn't it? At any age that wants to do something different. What piece of advice would you give to somebody who's looking to start up now? Oh,
go for it. Go for it. When I first started, I had no idea of business. I hadn't even considered the world of being self-employed. Fortunately, my partner had been self-employed for 7 or 8 years, so she had a good kind of understanding of it, but it still hadn't sunk in. I didn't even understand how somebody would send an invoice and get paid from it. And the amount I've learnt by going through it and doing it and submerging yourself in it, just 100%, just back yourself and go for it. And if you don't know, you won't know until you try. And I think the biggest thing is you can always fall back and go and get another job somewhere else if it doesn't work out, but you've got to go for it. And honestly, I think I'd struggle now to work for anybody else, because the lifestyle of being self-employed, as much as it's got the issues that come with it, it's just so rewarding in terms of, you know, you can see something growing, you're part of it, it's your kind of vision, but also kind of work-life balance, picking the kids up from school, taking them to school in the morning, you know, it's a flexibility that I'd never have got if I was teaching.
With a 9 to 5. I mean, it's interesting, you know, because this is our 4th interview now this year, and everybody says the same thing. You know, that work-life balance, the just go for it, and, you know, all the people that I interview said it couldn't work for somebody else because of how I kind of deem it is that you can't put a price tag on that freedom.
No.
Nobody could pay you a set amount of money to say, right, Dylan, give me that, you know, give me your freedom back, you know, and that's the beautiful part about it, isn't it, really?
Of course.
And so, did you, in that process then when you were starting up, and did you make any mistakes that you maybe are happy to share, and any learning from those mistakes early on?
Loads. I randomly stumbled upon a file within my computer the other day of, I can't remember, it was some sort of sales file, and it brought up an email that I'd sent out to schools as a sales email, and I've never cringed so hard at what I actually sent out. And I still can't kind of get over the fact that schools were buying me in, using material like that. It was
on the back of that email.
It was awful, like all disjointed. So the language in it, in terms of like education, why it just was not there compared to kind of the standards that we've got now. But I wouldn't say anything's kind of a mistake. It's all kind of been something to learn from. And I think my biggest thing, I'm not one to kind of take help. I don't like asking for help, and never have done. But I'd honestly suggest getting some help and support as you go through it. So it might have taken me 7 years to kind of get my way through now. If I'd have had a business mentor, if I'd have had a marketing mentor, if I'd have attended the sales courses and stuff that I probably should have done, I could have probably been here 3 years ago. That was my choice and my way, and it's only on reflecting of that now that I could actually go. And you know, just looking around the island now, you've got some really positive, you've got the Enterprise Hub, you've got M-Spark, you've got so many courses that are kind of offered for free. And, you know, even if you're in a full-time role now, they'd 100% be worth doing in preparation of anything else you want to do. It's never, any course like that, it's never not going to be useful, I don't think.
Would you also say on the back of that then, if you were looking for a co-founder, or, you know, having the right people around you, do you say that that's a skill in filling in the gaps that, because we all don't know everything and we can't do everything. Would you say having the right people in there to fill those gaps and those areas has been a benefit to you on your team? And have you got a co-founder, or is it just you?
No, it's just me. It's just me. Which again, that brings another element of difficulty. You've got nothing. You've got nobody to bounce ideas off. You've got nobody to discuss kind of serious matters. You've got nobody's opinion. So it kind of all lies on you. But I think what's one thing I kind of have learned, because I'd always tried to look for somebody like me, and just if I can just get another me, we could just double everything. And my partner said to me years ago, "You'll never find another you." I was like, "Well, how hard can it be? Because I'm nothing. It's just this is just life." And as the years have gone on, I've realised there's no other me. There's no other me. But I've also realised is another me wouldn't work. I've always looked for the same strengths that I've got, or what I think would be important in terms of strengths. But what we found is really effective is people being strong at stuff that I'm not good at, and they plug them gaps, and it kind of works together. And I think that's a really vital lesson, I think, is accepting that you do need different types of people to run a full company.
Yeah, and bringing people in and letting go sometimes, because it's hard when you're on you're a single founder, and it's hard to let go sometimes because you've got that dream and that ambition, and you're building it. But plugging in, as you say, those gaps is the way forward, isn't it? And having the right people on that journey with you.
Yeah.
So, last few questions now, Dylan. I'm sure you'll be glad to draw this to a close. Where do you see the business and what are the plans over the next couple of years? Where are you growing into?
My brain doesn't quite work the same as everybody else, I don't think. So I've got about 10 businesses planned in my head. Whether they come through or not, I don't know. But on a serious note, there's some big changes happening within our company. We're kind of changing the business model as such. I won't say too much because it's kind of not quite there yet. But the last couple of years, sales and things have started to slow down. We've taken a lot of feedback from schools and stuff on board. So the actual business model will change, and it will change for the better. We'll have a lot more kind of teaching staff, educators, teachers, and it'll be a really exciting period for them to kind of get involved with us. But I won't say too much on that. But in terms of the community interest company, things are going really well. So Matt's come in. Matt's been a real breath of fresh air. We do a lot of referrals with children that have kind of been excluded from school, or struggling within education, involved with the police and involved with youth justice and stuff. So we'd really like to grow that side of things alongside the holiday camps and all them bits and bobs. And that's going to be our biggest push along there, I think. So I think we've got an exciting 12 months ahead of us. There's going to be a lot of change and a lot of hard work. I'd promised myself this year that I was going to work hard all winter and then take some downtime this summer. But I kind of don't think that's going to happen. I think we've reached the summer now, and I'm probably going to be busier now than I was.
All cylinders.
So
to go.
It's one of them. So be good.
Okay. So last question then, and we have to tie it back into ambition because that's what this mission is all about. What does ambition mean to you personally?
It's following them dreams and following something that you're passionate about. There's a lot of people in this world, I think, that are kind of just content with going to work, turning up and going home and being a family or so. But I think everybody's got ambitions, and I think as society we're very quick to diminish our ambitions because it's kind of not for me or not for us. Or everybody's got ambitions, and it's never too late. No matter what walk of life you've got, whether you want to go into business, whether you want to go into a new role, whether you want to change something, whether even if you've got kids and stuff, it doesn't matter. You've still got, as adults, no matter how old, everybody's got ambitions and options, and I think it's important, and it gives you a new lease of life if you can follow them ambitions and go for it. Yeah,
I'm going to throw a little question in there, and obviously because you work with the school and the education system, would you say that the education system teaches young people to go for jobs as opposed to entrepreneurship? I know in Wales we're very good with, you've got MSPAC, you've got Makerspace, you've got these hubs, you've got Big Ideas Wales, but would you say that the education system plays a small part in that kind of mindset of, what do you want to be when you grow up, and then it leads them into a paid role as opposed to looking at wider dreams and ambitions?
I think we're still very traditional in the way we educate children. And 2 years ago, I think it was now, the curriculum for Wales came in, which is supposed to be really broad, really open-ended, where it's all about projects and bringing your literacy and numeracy stuff within projects and making it that way. But even then, there's a lot of issues with the curriculum where people kind of aren't quite understanding, aren't quite processing it. And I think within secondary school, I've not done within the actual inside of secondary schools for a long time, but it's a lot of preparing for your jobs fairs and stuff. Your jobs fairs are looking at your corporate jobs with, you know, within the public sector.
Yeah.
There's never a push. I was never in school told, why don't you go and run your own business? It was never. It just crossed. I was always brought up with, you go to school, you go to your college or your sixth form, you go to university, and then you get a job.
Yeah. Or the term job for life. It used to be in the good old days, wasn't it? You know.
So I don't think we're preparing people properly for it. But I think there has been a shift though in the last few years with all the places you've just mentioned. But I'd like to see a bit more within the curriculum in terms of working with businesses and allowing children and young people to see where their potential actually lies, because there's so many things now. Children are so switched on with digital stuff, AI, you know, all these computer things, and there's so many career paths they could go down that. As much as I'm kind of against sitting in front of the screens, if that's a passion for them, that should be followed.
I mean, you look at, you know, advancements of technology, and we're sat here today, we're surrounded by technology, aren't we, to get this across to the viewers. I think now, more so than ever, it's never been easier for young people to build a career on social media, if that's what they want to do. And I mean that in a positive way, obviously. You know, if it's like travel vlogging or like we're doing, storytelling, you know, but I don't think the school and education system has caught up with that and realised that potential for young people, and that should be part of kind of careers fairs, as you say, entrepreneurship. But we are lucky in Wales, you know, we do concentrate a lot more on it through Big Ideas Wales, but I do think other parts of the country could catch up, I think so, similar to what we do. So that brings our conversation to an end, Alan.
Fantastic.
Thank you for your time. It's been great having a chat with you. So if you found value from this video, please do give it a like, and if you haven't subscribed yet, then please consider doing so. And if you're working on your ambition or any ideas that you've got, do pop it down in the comments. I do take the time to read all of them, and I will respond back to you, and I'll see you all again soon. Thanks for watching.